Today, we're doing something a little different. We're not just going to learn about a topic, we're actually going to build something. We're going to be the architects of a truly resilient, basically indestructible mind.
So just start with this question for a second. I mean, really think about it. What if you had a mental framework so solid that nothing, no setback, no crisis, no amount of stress could actually break you? It sounds like a superpower, right? Well, the cool thing is, it's a superpower we can all learn to build.
You know, in the world of psychology, they have a name for this quality. They call it hardiness. And this is a really important distinction they make. This isn't about being tough, like a brick wall that just cracks under enough pressure. It's about being resilient, more like a bamboo plant that can bend with the wind, adapt, and even grow stronger because of the stress. So if we're going to build this thing, we need the blueprint first. We need to understand the basic design. So let's take a look at the core architecture of what actually makes a mind hardy.
This definition, which comes from the work of Dr. Salvatore Maddi, is just so powerful. Did you catch that key phrase? Opportunities for growth. See, a hardy mind doesn't just put up with stress, it actually uses stress. It treats it like a raw material to build something new, something better. It completely reframes the whole idea of adversity. So this whole architecture, it really stands on three main pillars. They call them the 3 C's: challenge, control, and commitment. It all boils down to this: seeing problems as challenges to be overcome, not as threats, focusing your energy only on the things you can actually influence, and staying connected and engaged with your life and your goals, especially when things get hard. You get those 3 things working together, and you've got the foundation for some serious resilience. Okay, so theory is one thing, but let's see how these blueprints look in the real world. We're going to look at 2 incredible survivors who really embodied this indestructible mindset. And what's fascinating is that they each did it through a slightly different but equally powerful lens. So on one side, you've got Admiral James Stockdale. He was a prisoner of war, and his survival literally depended on facing the brutal, harsh reality of his situation every single day. And on the other side, we have Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust by finding total freedom in his internal world. One guy built a filter for realism, the other built a shield of meaning. This quote, this is the absolute core of Stockdale's philosophy. And it's a total paradox, right? It's not about being an optimist or a realist. It's about somehow being both at the exact same time. It's having this unshakable faith that you're going to make it through, while never, ever losing sight of just how bad things are right here, right now. Stockdale actually noticed something really interesting in the prison camps. He said it was the wild optimists who were the first to break. Why? Because their whole mindset was, oh, we'll be home by Christmas. And when Christmas came and went, they were crushed. It's a real thing called optimism bias. Stockdale's hardcore realism was the very thing that saved him from that kind of crash. So, how do we build this realism filter for ourselves? Well, it's really a 2-step mental shift. First, you just gotta ditch the empty feel-good phrases, that toxic positivity stuff. And second, you replace it with an honest assessment. You look the storm right in the eye, and you acknowledge it, but you also remind yourself that you have what it takes. It's the difference between everything's fine and, okay, this is hard, but I can handle hard. All right, let's pivot to our second architect, Viktor Frankl. His entire philosophy is built around this one profound idea. Think about it. Something happens to you, that's the stimulus, and then you react, that's the response. Frankl said that our greatest power as human beings is in that tiny little gap, that space in between the event and our reaction. This idea became the foundation of his whole approach to therapy, which he called logotherapy. What he argued was that even in the absolute worst circumstances you can imagine, when literally everything else is taken from you, you still have one thing left. He called it the ultimate freedom, the freedom to choose your attitude, to choose how you're going to respond. This is such a perfect example of having a strong internal locus of control. So how do we build this meaning shield that Frankl talks about? Again, it's a super simple 2-step process. When a crisis hits, before you do anything, you create that space he talked about. You just pause. Then you ask yourself this incredibly powerful question. This question instantly shifts your brain from feeling like a passive victim to being an active problem solver. You're no longer asking, why is this happening to me? You're asking, okay, what am I going to do about it? Okay, so we've seen the blueprints from Stockdale and Frankl. We get the big picture.
Now, let's get practical. Let's stock our mental toolkit with 3 scientifically backed tools that you can start using, like today, to begin building your own indestructible mind. First up is something called stress inoculation training. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a vaccine for stress. You don't get stronger by hiding from everything difficult, right? You get stronger by intentionally exposing yourself to small, manageable doses of discomfort. This literally trains your brain and your nervous system to handle adversity better when the big stuff hits. And the cool thing is, you can practice this every single day. It could be something as simple as a 30-second cold shower at the end of your normal shower, pushing for that 1 extra rep at the gym, or, volunteering to give that presentation at work that makes you nervous. Look, the specific activity doesn't matter. The point is to intentionally and safely step outside your comfort zone to build up that resilience muscle. Tool number 2 is called decatastrophizing. Our brains, they're wired to imagine the absolute worst case scenario, and that's what triggers that fight or flight anxiety response. This technique basically short circuits that entire process by forcing you to look that worst case scenario right in the face and then make a plan for it. Here's exactly how it works. You take that big, scary, fuzzy fear that's floating around in your head and you write it down. Get super specific. What is the absolute worst thing that could possibly happen? Then, right underneath it, you write out a concrete step-by-step plan for what you would do if that thing actually came true. It's amazing. Research shows that once your brain sees the threat named and sees a plan in place, its alarm system just calms way down. Okay, our last tool. Now, this one might sound a little weird at first, but trust me, the research on this from places like the University of Michigan is solid. It's using the third-person perspective. When you're in a really stressful situation, talking to yourself using your own name can actually create psychological distance. It helps you regulate your emotions and think more clearly. So instead of getting sucked into that emotional spiral of, I can't handle this, I'm so stressed, you create a little bit of space. You kind of step outside of the feeling and coach yourself through it. It's the difference between being overwhelmed by the emotion and simply observing the emotion. It's a tiny little language switch, but it can be profoundly effective. So wow, we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? We've looked at the blueprints for hardiness, we've studied the mindsets of 2 absolute masters, Stockdale and Frankl, and now we've filled our toolkit with practical scientific techniques. So really, there's only one thing left to do.
All this knowledge, it's yours now. You have the plans, you have the tools. So the only question that matters is, how are you going to lay the first brick? What's one small, manageable challenge you will intentionally take on this week? That cold shower? That tough conversation? A new workout? You decide. Because here's the bottom line. An indestructible mind isn't something you find, it's something you build, one brick at a time.